Well, we've been talking about it. Insurance rates in Louisiana are getting even higher, and many folks have sounded off about the hike, saying it's way too expensive.
Because if you have to have a car, you have to have insurance.
Right.
And a lot of folks carry only minimal insurance or take the risk that not having any insurance at all. Duke Carter is here to break down those numbers. And Duke, this is a big problem for a lot of folks.
Yeah, big problem indeed. According to the state, we learned that 40% of drivers actually carry basic insurance, and another 15% of those drivers go without any coverage on their car. Now, there's a law in place called No Pay, No Play, which prohibits uninsured drivers from receiving certain benefits and rights, including the right to recover certain damages if and when they are injured in an accident, which results from the negligence of a driver who is legally and properly insured. So the theory behind No Pay, No Play is that drivers who refuse to get auto insurance should not be allowed to benefit from someone else's compliance with the law, while at the same time denying that benefit to others. So coming up at 7 o'clock, we're going to talk about the insurance rates based on zip codes, but for now, we're going to toss it back to you at the desk.
Yes, we are, Duke. Thank you very much. There are a number of factors that are causing insurance rates to go up, and this is all across the country, too.
Absolutely.
Yes, certainly. And one of those big factors we keep talking about is that so many people in our state have minimal or no insurance.
It is a factor, no question about it. 40%, as was just reported, have minimum insurance. I call that the working poor, just doing what law-abiding citizens do, and that is buy the insurance that the law requires them to have, even though they don't consider themselves to have assets necessary to protect. Another, actually 13%, are driving uninsured according to the Insurance Information Institute. So most drivers we share the roads with are without assets. So we have to protect our own assets through uninsured motorists.
And right now, are we one of the highest states to get car insurance?
Oh yeah, we always have been. Back to that No Pay, No Play law that he was reporting on,
yeah,
which I authored in the legislature in the late 90s, because we have always been a top 10, most of the time top 5 state.
And we're not the highest accident rank state either.
I mean,
we're up there.
I'm not sure about that.
I saw some figures the other day where it said we were not.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised at that. It's really about claims to litigation. We are off the charts compared to other states in the number of accidents that end up in litigation.
And so many people are just saying this does not feel fair at all. If you're going to raise the insurance rates even more, even fewer people you would imagine would be able to afford insurance. So how do things get better?
In fact, Michigan has a legislator now proposing legislation to repeal the mandatory insurance law in that state. 49 states have a version of mandatory insurance, but Michigan is one of the other highest priced auto insurance states in America, and that's what is being talked about at least in their legislature.
If there were no law to force you to buy insurance, wouldn't that raise rates even higher for the people who get insurance?
It absolutely would. It absolutely would, no question about that. But this phenomenon that is national right now is being driven primarily by distracted driving.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem.
Oh, my goodness. Not only is it driving rates up, it's killing motorists in record numbers. The record for highway deaths was set last year. It had been going down since the 60s, since seatbelts, airbags, etc. But distracted driving is killing people in record numbers.
And you had mentioned that there's so much litigation. Would there be as much litigation if insurance companies were fair to people when they made the claim?
Well, who knows that question. But why are we different than the other 49 states in the number of claims that end up in litigation? We can talk about tort reform, and they do in the legislature every year, but it is a major part of the problem in our state. Next to that, cheap gas, believe it or not. The cheaper the gas, the more miles driven. The more miles driven, the more accidents. And thirdly, auto repairs nationwide. My wife knocked the side mirror off of my Sequoia backing out of the driveway the other day. $1,300
wow,
to replace the mirror. A back bumper with cameras and alarms and all that, $2,000 to $3,000 to replace a bumper.
When she knocked the mirror off, did she sue you?
She doesn't know any lawyers.
How do you decide how much to raise the insurance rates by and when to grant those raises?
It's a great question, and I share that responsibility with the other 49 commissioners all across America. It's called actuarial justification, and for the most part, these rate increases all across America are being driven by loss ratios that are submitted by the companies with their rate filings, showing how much they've paid out versus how much they've taken in and the loss experience. The best proof of the fact that they're not excessive is the fact that we've lost a half dozen auto insurers that have bailed out of our state in the last 2 or 3 years.
So right now, you do not see any relief on the horizon?
Actually, not quite.
Okay.
I think they've reached the peak.
Okay.
This litigation has long been baked into our rates. What has driven it recently is that distracted driving, cheap gas repair costs. I think nationally that has now been, the peak has been reached with that, and we'll see it start to gradually taper off. We had a very low rate of increases for 5 years in a row at the beginning of the last 10-year period. And now for the last 4 years, they've been inching upward 8.5% per year for the last 2, after 2 and 3% for the third and fourth year back.
All right, Jim Donelon, thank you very much.